It was one of those perfect spring afternoons, the kind where the sun spills through the maple trees, just right, casting a soft glow that's practically made for reading. I'd claimed my usual spot on a wooden bench in Riverside Community Park, my biology textbook open on my lap, highlighters scattered like confetti. I had a big exam coming up, and this quiet corner of the neighborhood was my go-to for cramming. The bench wasn't anything fancy, just a standard park seat with a small bronze plaque that read, "In appreciation of community donors, 2018. I didn't think twice about it. But that unassuming bench was about to turn my peaceful study session into the wildest neighborhood showdown I'd ever seen. I was deep into a chapter on cellular respiration when a shadow fell across my page. I looked up to find a woman staring down at me, her perfectly styled blonde hair catching the light, designer sunglasses perched on her head like a crown. Her expression was pure ice, the kind that makes your stomach twist. "Excuse me," she said, her voice laced with a fake sweetness that didn't match her scowl. "You need to move. This is my saw bench." I blinked, thrown off. "I'm sorry." She pointed at the bench like I might have missed it. "I donated it. It's mine, and I want to sit here." I glanced around. There were 3 other benches in plain sight, all empty. "Ma'am, there are plenty of other places to sit," I said, keeping my tone polite. "I'm studying for an exam." Her nostrils flared, and she straightened up like she was about to deliver speech. "I don't think you understand. I'm Laura Thompson, president of the Homeowners Association. I personally donated this bench to the community, so I get priority seating. Now, please, gather your things and move." I stayed put, my brain struggling to process the absurdity. "I get that you might have contributed to the bench fund," I said, "but this is a public park. It's not your personal property." Laura's face turned a shade of red that didn't look healthy. She yanked her phone out of her designer purse, her fingers trembling with rage. "Fine. If you won't listen to reason, I'm calling the police. You're trespassing on my saw property." I gestured at the park around us, kids playing, joggers passing by. "This is a community park. It's public." But she was already dialing, turning away with a dramatic flourish. "Yes, hello. I need to report a trespasser who refuses to leave my property. It's an emergency." I couldn't believe it. Was this woman really calling the cops over a park bench? I shook my head and tried to focus on my textbook, but my concentration was toast. I'd been leave-vying with my aunt, Diane Carter, in Riverside Estates for about 6 months while attending the local community college. The neighborhood was nice, almost too nice, with its pristine lawns and HOA rules about everything from fence heights to mailbox colors. My aunt had warned me about Laura Thompson, the HOA's iron-fisted president, but I hadn't crossed paths with her until now. The park sat in the heart of the community, open to all residents. Diane had mentioned some drama about the benches years ago. Apparently, the HOA had run a fundraiser in 2018 to spruce up the park, and several residents chipped in for new benches. Their names were etched on a plaque, but the benches were clearly community property. Laura, though, seemed to think her donation came with a deed. Over the next week, Laura made it her mission to ruin my study sessions. She'd show up almost daily, arms crossed, looming over me like a storm cloud. "You're hogging my saw bench," she'd say, her voice dripping with indignation. "I'm documenting this harassment." Each time, I'd calmly explain that the bench was public and I had every right to use it. One day, she leaned in close, her eyes narrowing. "I've been president of this HOA for 15 years. I know every rule in the bylaws, and non-homeowners have restricted access to community amenities." I sighed. "I'm a resident. I live with my aunt, Diane Carter. She's owned her home here for 20 years. Laura sniffed. "Temporary residents don't get the same privileges. I'll bring this up at the next board meeting." It got creepier. Laura started snapping photos of me whenever I was at the park, not even trying to be subtle. I'd catch her aiming her phone from a distance, her lips pursed like she was building a case. Other residents began giving me odd looks, and I overheard whispers about how I was stirring trouble with the HOA president. One older neighbor, Mr. Grayson, pulled me aside as I packed up my books. "You're Diane's nephew, right? Watch out for Laura. Last year, she had a guy's car towed for parking 2 inches over the line. She's relentless." Relentless was an understatement. My aunt got a formal HOA letter citing resident violations for improper use of community property. We laughed at how ridiculous it was, but I could see the worry in her eyes. Maybe try the college library, she suggested gently. I shouldn't have to. I snapped, frustration bubbling up. She doesn't own that bench just because she donated some money. Things hit a boiling point on a sunny Saturday afternoon. I just settled in for a long study session when Laura marched up, this time with her husband, a tall guy who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, and two HOA board members trailing behind. "This ends today," she announced, loud enough for the whole park to hear. Families at nearby picnic tables turned to stare. "I've had enough of your disrespect for community rules and private property." I closed my textbook, exasperated. "Miss Thompson, we've been over this. This bench isn't a public park. I donated $5,000 for this specific bench," she shrieked, pointing at the plaque. "My name is on it. That means I have exclusive rights." Heads turned, and I noticed a few people pulling out their phones to record. "The plaque lists all donors," I said, keeping my voice steady. "It's a thank you, not a deed." Laura's face twisted with fury. "That's it. I've tried to be reasonable." She dialed 911, her voice shaking with drama. "I need police assistance immediately. There's a young man trespassing on private property and harassing me for weeks. I fear for my safety." I sat there, stunned by her lies. Her husband muttered, "Maybe we should just go," but Laura shot him a look that could have melted steel. "The police are coming," she said, smirking. "Leave now if you don't want to be arrested." I reopened my textbook. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not doing anything wrong. A crowd was gathering now. Mrs. Sharma, my aunt's neighbor, stepped forward. "Laura, isn't this a bit much?" "He's just studying." Laura snapped, "Stay out of this, Priya. This is an HOA matter." Then another voice cut through. "Actually, it's about filing false police reports." Mr. Daniels, a retired lawyer who walked his dog in the park, stepped up. "I've been watching this for weeks, kid. Want me to stick around for the cops?" I nodded, grateful for the backup. More neighbors joined, many filming Laura's meltdown. When two officers arrived, Laura rushed them, spinning a wild tale about how I'd been stalking her bench and provoking her. Officer Martinez listened, then turned to me. "Sir, your side." I explained everything: how I was a resident, how the bench was public, how Laura had been harassing me. "The plaque thanks donors, including Ms. Thompson," I said, "but it's community property." Laura thrust a folded paper at the officer. "I have proof of ownership." Officer Martinez skimmed it and handed it back. "Ma'am, this is a tax receipt for a donation. It doesn't give you ownership." "But my name is on the plaque," Laura wailed. Along with 11 others, Mr. Daniels chimed in. "I donated too. Do I own part of it?" Officer Chun, who'd been talking to neighbors and watching their VY approached with a grim look. "Ms. Thompson, based on witness accounts and EVY Denke, you've been harassing this young man and just made a false emergency report. That's a misdemeanor." Laura's face went ghost white. "I'm a VY Tim. I'm the HOA president." Officer Martinez was unmoved. "Turn around, please. You're under arrest for filing a false report and harassment." The crowd gasped as Laura was cuffed, her shrieks echoing across the park. "This is outrageous. Do you know who I am? I'll sue everyone." She glared at me, eyes burning. "This is his fault." I sat there, my textbook forgotten, watching the chaos unfold. Neighbors crowded around, sharing their own Laura horror stories, fines for minor infractions, threats over petty rules. 3 weeks later, I got the full scoop. Laura was charged with filing a false police report, harassment, and disorderly conduct. She was fined $2,000 and sentenced to 100 hours of community service, ironically, maintaining the park where her bench stood. The HOA board kicked her out, ending her 15-year reign. My aunt, who went to the hearing, said Laura collapsed in her seat, muttering, "Over a bench. My life, ruined over a bench." I went back to studying in the park, and the bench felt a little more like mine now, not because I owned it, but because I'd stood my ground. The neighborhood felt lighter, like we'd all been freed from Laura's grip. but I couldn't help wondering how one person's ego could spark such a firestorm. So what do you think? Was Laura just a power-hungry bully? Or did she genuinely believe the bench was hers? Should I have given up the seat to avoid the drama? Or was standing up to her worth it? And what about the HOA? Do these groups have too much control over our lives? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button if you're Team Bench, and subscribe for more wild stories like this.